in a quiet village nestled right at the edge of a sprawling ancient forest. Life was simple and sweet. For a young girl named Alara, the forest wasn't just a backdrop. It was a living, breathing neighbor. But lately, something was wrong. The vibrant greens were turning to dull browns. The cheerful birdsong had fallen silent, and a strange quiet had settled over the trees. The villagers whispered in hushed tones about the forest dying. Alara learned the truth from the village elder. Deep within the woods lay a magical spring, the very heart of the forest. And its light was fading. As the spring weakened, so did the forest, its life force slowly draining away. The thought of losing her beautiful, wild neighbor was more than Alara could bear. A resolve as bright and clear as the spring was once said to be formed in her heart. She knew what she had to do. She would go into that dark, withering forest, find the spring, and bring its magic back. The next morning, as the first rays of dawn painted the sky, Alara slipped out of the village. The moment she stepped under the canopy of the dying woods, a chill wrapped around her. The familiar, friendly paths were now twisted and treacherous, covered in gnarled roots that seemed to grab at her ankles. The air was thick and heavy. As she pushed deeper, tiny, shimmering lights flickered in the gloom. They were sprites, but not the playful kind from the old tales. These were mischievous and wary, leading her down false trails and giggling from hidden hollows as she stumbled. Lost and discouraged, she sat down on a mossy log, ready to give up. Just then, a low growl rumbled through the clearing. Alara froze. A massive bear with fur the color of rich earth and eyes that held the wisdom of ages emerged from the shadows. He wasn't menacing, just grumpy. He circled her once, sniffed the air, and let out a huff. Instead of attacking, he simply turned and lumbered down a hidden path, glancing back as if to say, "Well, are you coming or not?" With a surge of hope, Alara scrambled to her feet and followed her new, reluctant guide. The journey with the old bear, whom she decided to call Boris, was a lesson in itself. He didn't speak in words, but he communicated all the same. He taught her how to read the forest's subtle signs which berries were safe, where to find clean water, and how to walk without making a sound. He protected her from the more aggressive sprites and guided her through illusions that would have trapped her for days. They crossed rushing rivers on fallen logs and navigated through thorny thickets that tore at her cloak. With each challenge, they overcame a bond of trust formed between the girl and the beast. Lara would share her small rations of bread with him, and in return, Boris would bring her honeycombs dripping with golden sweetness. She found herself talking to him, telling him stories of her village and her hopes for the forest. The grumpy old bear would listen, his deep-set eyes seeming to understand everything. He was no longer just a guide. He was her friend, her guardian in this dying world. She was learning that the forest, even in its sickness, was full of wonders, and that true companionship could be found in the most unexpected of places. The heart of the forest felt closer now, not just as a destination, but as a purpose they shared. Days turned into a week, and the landscape grew stranger. The trees were skeletal, their bare branches reaching for the sky like desperate hands. The air grew colder, and a palpable sadness hung in the silence. Boris walked with a new urgency, his great head low, sniffing the ground. Finally, they arrived. Before them was a vast circular clearing. In its center, what should have been a vibrant, shimmering pool of light was now a mere puddle, emitting a faint, sickly pulse, the last dregs of the forest's magic. And coiled around this dying heart was a creature made of shadow and sorrow. It was huge, formless, with eyes that glowed with a lonely, pale light. It didn't roar or attack. It simply watched them, a deep sigh echoing from its shifting form, a sound of profound despair. Boris let out a low growl, instinctively moving to place himself between Alara and the creature. Alara's own heart pounded in her chest. This was the monster, the guardian of the spring. Everything had led to this confrontation. She looked at the creature, then at the dying spring, and then at her brave, furry friend. The stories always said the hero had to fight the monster. But as she looked into the creature's mournful eyes, she didn't see evil. She saw pain. She saw loneliness. Taking a deep breath that felt like she was inhaling all the fear in the clearing, Ilara did something unexpected. She took a step forward, past Boris's protective bulk. The shadow creature flinched, its form contracting. "Hello," she said, her voice small but clear in the heavy silence. "You look lonely." The creature stilled, its glowing eyes wide with surprise. No one had ever spoken to it before. They had only ever run or tried to fight. Alara continued, her voice gaining strength. "The forest is dying. We came to help." She took another slow step. It must be hard watching it all fade away. It must be hard being all alone. She didn't hold a weapon. She didn't shout or make demands. She simply stood there, offering not a challenge, but empathy. She spoke of her village, of the birds she missed hearing, of the green leaves she longed to see. She spoke of the beauty that was being lost. The shadow creature didn't respond with words, but its tense, coiled form began to relax. The mournful sigh was replaced by a low, questioning hum. It had spent eons guarding the spring, growing bitter and isolated as its power waned and its home withered. It had become a reflection of the forest's own despair. Ilara saw this. Instead of a monster to be defeated, she saw a fellow inhabitant of the forest, grieving just as she was. She reached into her small satchel and pulled out the last of her bread, the same kind she shared with Boris. She held it out, an offering of peace, a gesture of friendship. The shadow creature watched her, its glowing eyes fixed on the small piece of bread in her outstretched hand. Slowly, tentatively, a tendril of shadow snaked out and gently touched the offering. As it did, a wave of understanding, of shared sadness, and a flicker of hope passed between them. The creature wasn't a malicious guardian. It was a prisoner of the spring's fading magic, bound to it and reflecting its decline. Touched by Alara's simple, profound act of kindness, the creature's shadowy form receded from the spring. It wasn't surrendering. It was allowing her access. It was trusting her. With a grateful nod to her new, strange friend Alara knelt by the dying pool. She didn't have magic spells or ancient incantations. She only had her hope and her love for the forest. She dipped her hands into the cool, murky water and closed her eyes. She poured all her feelings into it, her memories of the vibrant forest, her friendship with Boris, her empathy for the lonely guardian. She poured in her unwavering belief that it could be beautiful again. A tiny spark ignited in the depths of the pool. It grew, pushing back the darkness, transforming from a flicker to a gentle glow, and then into a brilliant, dazzling light that erupted from the spring, bathing the entire clearing in warmth and life. The light pulsed outwards, a wave of pure magic that swept through the clearing and into the woods beyond. The skeletal trees shuddered and, in moments, tiny green buds erupted from their branches. The ground softened and vibrant moss spread like a plush carpet. The air, once heavy and cold, became fresh and sweet with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. The shadow creature drank in the light, its form solidifying not into a monster, but into a graceful, deer-like being of starlight and dusk. It bowed its head to Alara, a silent thank you, before dissolving into the newly vibrant woods. No longer a prisoner, but a free spirit, Alara and Boris watched, side by side, as life roared back into the forest. The journey home was a joyous one, through a world reborn. The paths were clear, the sprites danced in the sunbeams, and birdsong filled the air. When Alara walked out of the forest and back into her village, she wasn't just the girl who had left. She was a hero, but Alara knew the truth. It wasn't a sword or a spell that had saved the forest. It was understanding. It was choosing friendship over fear. She had learned the greatest secret of all, that courage is important but true. World-changing power is found in the simple, unwavering strength of kindness. Thank you for watching, and remember to spread a little kindness of your own. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.